I think everyone may be here that should be here.
Is joining us. Okay. All righty. We'll get started then. It's 2:02. Let's just do a quick roll call. Kara's here. John, you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. John Roush.
Byron?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Byron Bealey? Rachel?
Here.
Stephanie?
Hi, Stephanie Bull here.
Okay. We have Riley?
Hello, I'm here.
Okay. Kara, do we have a quorum then?
We do, yep.
Okay. Then we have some additional guests with us today. Anne? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Sure, I'm Anne Schwend. I'm a Sustainable Communities Planning Advocate with Montana Environmental Information Center. Just wanted to listen in on the meeting and see what you guys are doing.
Very
Thanks.
good. Thanks, Anne. And ACV TV? Do you want to introduce yourself for the record, please? You're on mute. Since this is a public meeting, we try to keep accurate minutes and who's attending. I'm not sure who's listed under HCV TV streaming, but if you're hearing us, could you please unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please? Okay. Guess not. Probably stepped away to get a cold drink or something. All righty. Anyway, we'll begin. First on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the July meeting, which were attached to our meeting announcement. Would entertain a motion?
I would make a motion. This is Byron.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. I'll
Alrighty.
second that.
All right, any discussion? Any changes? All righty. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Those against, nay. Okay. All righty. Again, for the purpose of having accurate minutes of this public meeting, Dr. G, who just joined the call, could you introduce yourself, please? Could you give us your name? Please.
Michael, looks like Dr. G just wrote in the chat, a member of the public.
Yeah, if he could give his name for the minutes, that would be helpful. Can you do that for us? You can put it in the chat if you'd like. All righty. Okay, is anyone who has not introduced themselves, if they can write us their name, full name, in the chat, just so that we have a complete record of the meeting, we'd appreciate it. All righty. Moving on. Regular items on the agenda. First up is item A, discuss the advisory board review process and updated documents.
All right. I might go ahead and Okay, I thought I had an echo there for a second, but so if any of you, I'm hoping, I guess, that you all had a chance to look at the attachments in the email last week. But two of the attachments, so this would be the first one, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund application evaluation form. And then the other one that we'll focus on for this part of the agenda is the evaluation guide. So just real quickly with this evaluation form, I think we took into account some of the feedback that you all had last month, and then Chris had quite a bit of input, and then Andrew as well. And I can kind of walk through this form, and then hoping to spend a little bit of time on the evaluation guide and just see what you all think and if you have any feedback. So basically, the idea here is that when the applications and the underwriting reviews attached to each application are sent to you all prior to the meeting where applicants would have a chance to actually present their projects. You all would sit down with this piece of paper and just kind of go through each of these criteria items and give that application an excellent, an adequate, or a needs improvement. And so the notes section, you could detail a little bit more your thoughts as to why you selected any of those. And then, so here we have it broken up into project planning and execution, financial analysis, and then capacity and experience. And so each of those criteria items are taken directly from the review section of the guidelines. And then we would total up your score here and have a way to kind of put the applications in order for the commission. And then, you know, whether or not you kind of conclude here, whether or not you're recommending this application and why. So that's kind of the individual aspect of the advisory board review that we have right now. And then to guide you through that document, we have this, this document here. So this gives a little bit of guidance as far as, you know, if maybe you're between deciding whether this proposal is adequate or excellent, you may want to refer to these, to this matrix here to kind of help you decide there. And so I guess for the most part, I'm hoping to utilize this time just to get your feedback. If you find it helpful to go through each one of these, we can do that as well. But for my own purposes, I guess I'm more hoping for feedback than to go through this with a fine-tooth comb here. And so I guess I'll pass this back to you, Michael.
I would folks like to provide some general feedback on the evaluation guide to Kara? Go ahead if you have some thoughts.
I don't have a very specific level of feedback but from my point of view, sorry, let me turn my camera back on. From my point of view, it's hard to provide feedback on a form that's never been used, at least that I've never used. As a great place to start, I think we're in pretty good shape, but I'd like to sort of, you know, reserve the ability to tweak maybe for another round of, you know, for our next round of invited applications or funding applications. But right now, it seems to me like we're in pretty good stead. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, and just to maybe weigh in on that a little bit, I'm certainly going to be turning in these documents when I go through the commission to have the guidelines and the application adopted by the commission. But this is a little bit more flexible as far as, you know, just like you said, John, we're essentially making a move here to go through this first round, not really knowing, I mean, there's no way to really practice for this, you know, and so our first round will kind of be that practice, and we'll certainly have the opportunity prior to the second round to make some edits. And just in talking to Missoula's Housing Trust Fund administrator, it's exactly the process they went through. They kind of did a a smaller allocation for their first round of funding, and they use that as a practice round. And they had some of the same feedback that you actually all provided last month too. So they're changing up their point system and actually moving toward more towards something like this than what they had previously. So but yeah, just if that uses your concerns at all, we'll definitely have room to make some edits post application round.
Sure. Just a couple general comments. Thank you for fleshing this all out. I find it a little different to have the highest score be the lowest number. You've been playing golf again, Kara? Which is
Thinking the same thing.
Yeah, low
Well,
score.
and there's no opportunity to give a 0.
Zero. That's the other. I would think a 0 or non, just not at all addressing the area. Yeah, 0 would I was right with you there, John. So
Yeah.
I would agree with that, and most notably because, after going through kind of the assessment descriptors, there's the needs improvement pretty much meets the minimum requirements that we're putting out there, and of course there's going to be some applications we'll see that don't even meet those requirements. So to echo Michael, I think we should flip the point system around and, like you said, offer 0 points for entries that don't meet those requirements.
And I guess I definitely hear that. And so as far as the points go, I'm not attached one way or the other. I guess I'm a golfer. I've never played golf before, but
sorry. We're just giving you a hard time there.
no, it's funny to, like something makes sense in your head and then you put it before a group of people and it's like, oh yeah, that's, a high point would, I think in the general scheme of things mean a good application. So yeah, that's no problem at all. That can be switched. And then I guess, and maybe I'll just ask all of you. So the needs improvement section, we talked about quite a bit, and just thinking that each of these applications is going to go through kind of a staff review process prior to this, and that perhaps needs improvement should be adequate and adequate should be good, and then excellent should stay excellent. But really, so we've done a ton of editing over the last couple of weeks to this section, just thinking that really applications making it to this process will be eligible for the funding, they'll be complete, and if they need improvement, maybe they could be more in line with the priorities and goals of this fund, or with other documents that the city has. But really, they should be at least adequate to make it to this section. So that's something I've kind of struggled with a little bit, and I don't know if you have any other feedback that maybe would help me there a little bit, but just I guess I'd throw that out there.
Comments? So yeah, so the needs improvement would suggest there would be areas that, we probably wouldn't want to fund someone that, particularly in the major areas, but needs improvement. And that what I was kind of talking about was kind of not responsive. You're saying will be screened out by staff if they're not responsive. And sometimes in these things, people, depending on whether it'll be, you could write an application and they might have a good project, but they don't really address one of these areas, and it would be non-responsive in that area. And I've seen that. I would expect, I guess we could send something back if it needs improvement. You probably wouldn't want to, as you're saying, so you're saying adequate would drop down to a lower, saying we'd have good. I think that's excellent and good, excellent or meet its expectations, needs improvement, non-responsive or something. in the whole ranking of it, and that the non-responsive and maybe the needs improvement would be addressed by staff. Sometimes that puts you in the evaluation. It would, it's a basic screening, I guess, and I think that's acceptable and appropriate. One of the things we talked about last go around was whether or not any of these need to be weighted heavier. Like the way this is presented, each of the categories would score the same, and that there may be some may be more critically important, or I don't know what the right word is, but would be like just the first one, that it's meeting the goals we want. There's a weighting between some of the criteria being more important than others, while others are more threshold questions. Well, yeah, we like the idea, we like what's being proposed, but are they ready? People could be ready to do something, but if we don't agree with what's being proposed, if in a ranking process and we're looking at a numeric score, that being ready to do something that isn't really what we believe to be the priority for the community shouldn't score the same, at least in my opinion.
I would agree with that. One thing I'm also thinking of as I'm looking at this too, the third row, the length of time a project will maintain its affordability. I mean, I feel like that also falls under kind of the first rows in terms of consistency with our goals and priorities. And so, I would agree that, some of these items, I think are more important to consider. And I think at least a couple of, or at least in my opinion, two of those that would be more important would probably be their ability for financing and their ability to, of course, carry out the project. Timelines can be wishy-washy in certain instances, and so those can be reasonable. But I think, of course, in terms of ensuring that they have the financial backing as well as having the capability to execute the project is, I think, paramount to us not, wasting money, I think.
And I think we're gonna find when we get further meeting, some of this readiness and some of these other things will fall in line too. If they've submitted these kind of projects before, they should have this down, and they should score high. So, but I think the overall form is, we got to try it and see how it works.
One of the other ideas we've kind of bounced around here as far as the providing a weight to some of these different items is thinking about like a bonus point option. So if, like, I think with the, I'm going to use, sorry, let me scroll down here. One document. So one of the priorities that ended up getting added in, I think this was in June, was projects that further the city's environmental and sustainability goals and objectives. And so that's, something kind of buried here in this priorities section. But if that was something, and again, I'm just going to pick on that particular one, it doesn't have to be that, but if that was something that the board felt maybe should give an application a few more points, then perhaps that's something where maybe again, if we flip the point system here, then maybe they would get a 4 instead of a 3, something like that. And again, just, kind of an idea to throw out there, but maybe a way to use this framework that's been set up to also include some kind of prioritization or weighting system.
Yeah, I think our discussion on those type of issues, I think we talked about resource conservation, energy efficiency as an example, plus things like physical accessibility. So, universal design ability for everyone to utilize. We were viewing as kind of threshold rather than as a bonus. It's an expectation. It's we'd be expecting. It's kind of an expectation of all projects that they would be addressing those concerns, and so we'd want to, and they would want to be addressing that in the application. Talking, and I think we put that in the application that they would address how they're doing those things. So rather than giving points for those who address that, we would, if they aren't addressing, making some effort to address those kind of key, basic expectations, and we would kind of like, let's do another look at your project design. I think what a little bit of the conversation says at first, the first category looks to be kind of a big one, and then we may need to break that out further, and that might be for me, it almost jumps out as kind of the master category that we, for it to be ranked equal with the others would, it really gets at the meat of the matter. So there, you might be able to pull out and create a number of categories from that, or subcategories, but that would be kind of end up being in combination, carry a lot more weight, because that we're, overall that's addressing the overall priorities of the program as presented in the documents and the growth policy and in the community needs assessment, that really is the heavy duty essential meat of the matter, and that we should be looking at that at some detail and scoring for that, rather than lumping that all into one, or somehow giving it, maybe a separate category that if you aren't really addressing those, the project probably shouldn't score in the way it's set up now, that it could score, maybe it's not addressing the priorities as much, but the other things are all in place and you could still go forward with it. I don't have a solution as to how to structure that, but
one idea actually that I'm thinking of, in agreement with Michael, is that maybe we break that out. So in a similar section to the financial analysis, the project planning and execution, as well as the capacity and experience, and then each of these 4 sections have an equal total number of points. And so maybe that's how we're able to kind of weigh things a bit heavier. So that way, as an example, if each section has 3 items, each 3 items can total up to 9 points if it needs total improvement across the board. Like I said, if we separate out the consistency with Helena Affordable Housing Trust Fund priorities and goals, et cetera, and make that worth 3, 6, or 9 points instead of just 1, 2, or 3. That's a way we could weight that in individual capacity.
Yeah, Riley,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that I agree that's a good idea. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and this might just be dumb, but I'm just going to throw it out there and you guys could just tell me, right? Because I'm looking at these various categories that we have, these various criteria, and rather than trying to figure out how to make sure that each one of our various sections has 4 or whatever number of categories so that we can come up with 3, we might, 3 or 6 or 9 points per category or whatever. We can put as many categories or criteria under any given topic that we may want. And so project planning and execution might end up with a total score available of 25 or 30 points. What if there are 10 categories? But
Right,
at the end
so,
of all of that, that's just an evaluation for the individual or for us collectively to use as a group. So at the end of all of that, if you just say that we have 4 categories and each one of those broader categories, project planning and execution, gets a number from whatever, 1 to 0 to 5,
mhm,
0 to 4, whatever. Then you use the other stuff to make your own evaluation clear.
Okay.
But at the very end, you just take what you've analyzed and come up with your own overall overarching score, right? And so then
So-
you have a different number.
exactly. So instead of grouping them per kind of their category or whatever, we group them in terms of their weighted tiers, pretty much.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
So are you suggesting then that say if the consistency with priorities, goals, et cetera, if that became its own kind of area, that we would be weighting that? Well, rather what you were suggesting, John, was that in my mind, I would like to see that category be maybe double the other ones so that we wouldn't have anything move forward that wasn't meeting those priorities. And then everything else really gets at the ability to meet that,
yeah,
to
to
deliver
support
on-
that overarching,
yeah.
sure.
And so that we would have, it would almost be set up a threshold kind of thing. You might, mathematically, you might still be able to proceed if you didn't score as well, but that you wouldn't have the possibility of projects that weren't really focused on the priorities for the community moving forward. And then it would allow it to kind of provide some separation. And then these other categories, which are very important, would still be ranked, and it would also lead to maybe, great idea, but your execution, your experience, whatever the category is, isn't where it needs to be, and then you might not be funded there. So, but first and foremost, in my mind, is that what you're proposing, and I guess it has to be meaningfully, you can't come in and propose something, that isn't achievable by you. I mean, it has to be grounded in reality, but the project has to be focused on our priorities that have been established in the documents.
If you're taking a test in college and there's an essay section and a true false section and a fill in the blank section, they don't all have to equal the same weight. The professor is the one who gets to say, look, the essay is what I'm really concerned about. I want to make sure you know how to write. And I'm weighing that 75% of your grade on this test is going to be in the essay section.
I think it's a good comparison, because
Not any different than what we're trying to do. Yeah.
that the meat of the matter, we want to make sure it's there, and then we want to use these others to kind of distinguish as to readiness and ability to proceed.
So I can certainly, this is, I guess, kind of what I heard is that I can certainly break out this category and make that more of a threshold item separate from these other larger categories, and perhaps break that down a little bit further. But you're saying to still have that kind of with the same system, or more of just like
With the same
pass?
system, but maybe double their scoring, the scoring that's possible in that essential priority, meeting the priority kind of thing. And I don't know what that looks like in the end, but
Okay.
the idea that we're focusing on what's being proposed is meeting the priority goals for the community. All right.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
No, it looks good. All righty. Kara, do you have anything you want us to look at some detail on this, or just to keep us on track?
Yeah, more just, I guess, it was very helpful last month, kind of just running what I had by all of you. And I think, again, I think I can kind of take a little bit of direction here and maybe roll with separating that out again. And you'll kind of see here in the next, I think if we're looking at the timeline in the next item, we're kind of, at least I'm starting to feel a little bit of the timeline crunch. And so whatever we decide at this, I'd like to take your feedback here into account and then use that as kind of a final draft that will be seen by the commission. And so again, not that any of this is, kind of all a work in progress, at least this first couple of rounds, but yeah, so I guess to answer that, I think that's enough to go on. That's really all I had for the this agenda item.
Okay. So just to clarify in terms of our process, in terms of, will we have one more meeting before you say these are the final, as we know, it's a work in progress, but that we can sign off on and give our thumbs up, and there will be agendas that approving the final documents for presentation to the commission?
So we're hoping to be at the September 7th admin meeting. And so that's really just to introduce these documents to the commission. And they'll have that chance then to submit questions, and then probably coming back, I'll switch gears here in just a minute and look at our actual dates, but I think maybe the next admin meeting would be the 21st of September, with the idea that it would get passed on the 26th. So really, if we could go back to the first Wednesday of the month for this meeting, and we would, you could certainly see the documents prior to the commission seeing them, but I have to get stuff entered like 2 to possibly 3 weeks prior to the 7th when I go to the commission. So really, I'm looking at like having everything finally submitted by next Wednesday, if that gives you an idea of kind of like the timeline crunch I'm starting to feel here. So yeah, I don't know quite how to answer that. I want you to feel like you have
Would you
the
want us,
ability.
because from an agenda, so are you asking if we would approve these today?
That's what I was hoping, and my alternative is that I can kind of separate that out and create what I'm gonna hope is my final draft and send that to you like here, maybe even like by tomorrow, and maybe we could do like a consent via email. I think that could also be an option.
Just in terms of a public meeting, what I might suggest as a process is that if it's acceptable, if we could schedule a meeting as, maybe another meeting in 10 days or something, give you time to get the documents together, give us time for us to review, mark them as final drafts for, final drafts pre-presentation to the city commission, and that we would then, and then you would have created an agenda where approval by the advisory board of these draft documents. Then we would be real clear that we'd be coming for, this is it, this is the final pass before we go on to the before they go forward for the initial review by the city commission.
It have to be sooner than 10 days.
Okay, sooner, we can probably get that scheduled. Well, what I'm concerned about is that we don't really, from an agenda thing, we're not saying we're approving anything here, and I don't know if we have to, because we don't necessarily, we advise, but that it might be useful. And then from the ability, from a public board perspective, the ability to email, like I'm on a number of nonprofit boards where you're allowed to, you can make votes by email, but I don't think you're allowed to do that as a public. We have to operate open meeting law.
Gotcha.
So would a week from now be enough time? I'm not even sure. Well, a week from now is a horrible day for me.
And I guess, I'm thinking, like, I really do my deadline really is next Wednesday to have this
Yeah.
submitted in our
Submitted,
system.
okay.
It would have to be.
Well, I think
sooner
we've been
than that.
working through these, and I think it's been a really good process. I wasn't quite prepared to give the final thumbs up today, but I don't know, what does the rest of the board think?
My only other, sorry, Byron.
No, you go ahead, John.
The quick question that I had was, is there anything else that we need to review in addition to this one evaluation guide that we're looking at?
No, the other
Okay.
item I had for you was just the timeline, and this is,
Yeah.
the timeline that I have is what has been kind of internally suggested, so it's certainly not set in stone at this point. But it's the intention, I think, of Chris to open funding before the end of the year. So that's kind of what the timeline is based on, is really trying to figure out how we can make that happen. I mean, to me, it feels like, we still have a few months left here, but it's really given how much lead time you need to get through the commission and give them time, and applicants need time to sit with these requirements and formulate their responses. It really is just around the corner. So
Yeah, no, that all makes perfect sense. I just didn't want to get through a discussion about whether or not we're going to meet again to worry about this final draft, if you will, and then continue on in our agenda and find out that there's another form that we want to tweak or worry about, et cetera. And so if we're just dealing with this, I mean, I think that you have enough in front of you right now. For me, I'm willing to let you tell me how many days you need. And if you want to try to have another meeting on Friday, it'll be a 5-minute meeting if we get the document a day in advance, or half a day in advance even. If we can look at it and say, oh gosh, she did everything we just talked about, that's just awesome. I'm more than happy to do a public meeting, but I don't have to wait 10 days or a week, or, I don't care.
So, Kara, you had mentioned there is going to be a commissioners meeting on both the 7th and the 21st as well.
yeah, I believe so. Let me check their calendar real quick just to make sure.
So, I mean,
It's not-
I know you were wanting to try to get this in front of them on the 7th, but I'm curious, of course, if we can just hold off until the meeting for the 21st. In that event, of course, we can meet on the first Wednesday of the month on the 7th. Finalize it then, and then submit it for the meeting on the 21st. Does that seem reasonable, or is there something I'm not catching?
Sarah, are
Sorry,
you trying to do the administrative meeting or a regular commission meeting?
so we're looking at administrative meetings in
Okay, so
September, April.
so the administrative meetings are on the 7th and the 21st.
Thanks, April. So I guess, Riley, my concern there is that that just doesn't, it gives me no time at all to submit those documents to, I mean, I think 2 weeks is a minimum time that I would need to have those documents in. And so that would be meeting, and then, before 5 PM on the 7th, have a document submitted for the 21st.
Can I suggest that the application and guidelines are really, we've been through those. And those are moved forward. And are there any changes in what you've presented from what we've previously seen? No. So we're really just dealing with this evaluation guide. I guess I think I'm comfortable with that you can incorporate what we've discussed today in the evaluation guide. And the evaluation guide is really something we should show to the Board of Commissioners, not the Board of Commissioners, but the city commissioners. And, you should say it's a draft, and if there's any final changes of it before it actually goes live, it could go back to the city commission. But the real meat of it is the guidelines, which highlights all the priorities and things, and the application itself. And then this is just really a tool being used to evaluate. but it'll be on you then to just incorporate what we've talked about here. And that you could then bring that forward with your packet and meet your timeframes.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was hoping. And again, with the idea that we'll certainly be needing, even given that, this is exactly what all of you envisioned going into the first round, we're going to have to make edits
Yep.
based on how that goes. But yeah, if you are all comfortable with that, that's, I think ideally would be wonderful if we could kind of move
Sure.
forward then.
And if you can send it to the revised evaluation guide, just so that we have it. But I think we're good. Because the work session on the 7th will be their first look at it, and they won't be taking action or anything on it. So we would have some time to get back to them with anything, any substantive thoughts that we had on the process. I happen to be out of town on the 7th. I probably could call in, possibly. I am. And will you need any of us there at that, or is that you'll present and then?
I think it'd be nice, but if you don't mind, maybe I'll include that when I send you all this updated evaluation guide. I haven't checked in with Chris about that particular item yet.
I think you guys present it, and if we can just weigh in, just to say that we talked about the process that was used. I think you've led a very thorough review, and I think the members of the advisory board have really contributed significantly to the process. So we'll just acknowledge that, and that it's been a number of months, so they know that some significant thought has gone into the final product. What's the draft that's being presented to them.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll send you all my, what I'm going to end up using as a presentation on that day as well. But that'll be certainly a part of it. It's just talking about how, this kind of process that got us to where we are right now.
I guess I'm in favor of proceeding with it too, make the change on the first one. We got to go forward. We got to start getting applications, and we don't want to hold it up any longer. So I think we need to get it to the committee on the 7th if we can.
Okay.
So
is everyone comfortable with that idea that we move things forward with Kara adopting what we discussed on the evaluation guide?
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Sounds good, Byron. Good. And I don't think it requires a decision. It's a recommendation. And so we'll just move it forward. And then the application guidelines and this draft evaluation guide would go forward with Kara's edits as discussed today.
Excellent. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay. So do you want to pull out the timeline?
Yes.
Item B?
Before we move on
Okay.
real quick,
Okay.
as I keep looking at it, under project readiness, I would suggest we add building planning to it. Between, quote unquote, land use processes and site control. I know, of course, I've seen plenty of plans in my own time where it's literally just blocks on a site. And of course, they might have the site figured out, but if they don't have the building figured out, I would be severely doubtful that they'd be ready within a year. So I would just add that in terms of just helping clarify that for, paying attention to, I guess, what's going to hold them up in terms of the architectural side.
Sure. Yep, I can add that in there. That doesn't make sense. Anything else on this, or do you feel ready to move on to the next agenda item?
I think we're good to go.
All
Agreed.
right. Okay, I was kind of hoping to share a little prettier calendar. I have something in Outlook that I could pull up as well, but just for the purposes of, I guess, the first part of this, kind of fleshed out some of these dates a little bit here and then updated as far as kind of this new timeline that we're looking at. And so let me actually. So before I get into that, let me just give you this background. So we're meeting with NeighborWorks Montana on the 31st of this month. So they'll submit basically their bid package for providing underwriting reviews, and then so a price and kind of what that will look like more specifically. And then in addition to that, a little bit of a scope of work moving forward from when they're actually underwriting projects from this fund. So that's on the 26th. We're meeting with them on the 31st of this month. And I think the rest of this will be on this sheet. So I just wanted to share that with you, I guess. So given that the commission adopts the guidelines on the 26th, then we kind of move into this process of being able to release that specific information about the funding on October 1st or around there, because October 1st is actually a Saturday, but we have a little bit of leeway there because I think that 26th meeting is a Monday, so we have a little bit of time there that week to prep stuff. So yeah, funding opens October 1st, application deadline of November 17th, which is the week prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. And so we're giving ourselves basically the 18th to turn those applications around. And so that's when internally we'd be doing our review for eligibility and completion, and then sharing those applications with NeighborWorks Montana to start an underwriting review. And they said, depending on the number of applications, they think it's feasible to get those reviews back to us by December 1st. And so if we move forward with the December advisory board, the second Wednesday of the month, that would give you all about 2 weeks to have the applications and the reviews in hand and be able to work through that evaluation guide document. And so and this is where, again, I'll kind of defer to you all to kind of tell me what works for you and what might be the most helpful. But a couple different options would be to do the applicant presentations on the 14th, kind of during that regularly scheduled time, and then maybe do a special meeting on the 16th, so that'd be that Friday, 2 days later, to kind of discuss and compare notes and then come up with our recommendations for the commission. Chris's idea was that it would be one extremely long, potentially extremely long meeting on the 14th. So I'd kind of open that up to a little discussion there as far as what you all might like to see. And again, that might depend if we have 2 applications versus 10 applications. And so we may need to be a little bit flexible there. And so the dates for the 2023 commission have not been made yet. So we're guessing a little bit here, but the language we're going to use when we put this all out to the public in October is that we'll be introducing recommendations at the first January commission admin meeting, and then asking them to make decisions at the first January regular commission meeting. So those dates aren't, it'll be a little bit of time before they get firmed up, but wanted to have that on there as well. So if you guys have any questions, I'll just open it up, and then if you have feedback specifically on that, I'd be interested to hear that as well.
Kara, in terms of NeighborWorks Montana availability to do the work and the time frame, I think they can turn things around quickly, but in terms of these falling within Thanksgiving week and, those kind of issues, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and this kind of complicates this a little bit, but yeah, it really
Yeah.
depends if there's 2 or 4 or a dozen, and it's probably won't be. I mean, the project will need to be ready, but I mean, ability. So the city staff review, the ability to. So city staff review includes the NeighborWorks Montana review, but also includes internal kind of threshold reviews that you guys will be doing in addition to the kind of financial analysis that NeighborWorks Montana will be doing. So what day of the week is the 18th of November?
Let's see here.
That's a Friday.
Okay. So the next week is Thanksgiving week. So 19th, 20th,
24th
21st
is,
of November. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then the first to have everything ready and what day of the week is the first? Did you say it was a Friday?
The 1st of December is a Thursday.
A Thursday, okay. So we
Yeah,
would
and
have it,
those dates specifically NeighborWorks recommended, and so I
okay, and that was my question. You discussed with them with Thanksgiving, this specific calendar, okay.
Mhm.
And then we would have there's that little window where would we getting it on a Friday? We'd have a weekend. We'd have a couple weekends if we need a little more time, depending on what it is. So we should have enough time. And then depending on how many, we would have a meeting on the 14th and would be an extended meeting. And if necessary, we could reserve the right to have a second meeting if necessary. And we'd probably, we'd have to, the problem is on posting. I guess we could notice both those meetings on a single public notice and have it, if necessary, on the 16th.
Just
But by the
cancel
time,
it. Don't need it.
go ahead, Byron.
Yeah, just cancel it if you didn't need the second one, but
Right.
schedule like what you're talking.
Yeah, but if we say we're going to make a decision at a certain meeting, we would need to, or the possibility of a decision that we need to publicly notice that. And you need 48 hours notice minimum for a public meeting. So we would need to kind of sense, but what we will know by the time we set a notice for the 14th meeting, we'll know how many projects we'll be reviewing. And so we would, if we have, a higher number, we would definitely establish that we would review them on the 14th and then make decisions on the 16th or something like that. And if it was only, say no more than, 4 projects that we feel that we could have a fair discussion, review of the scoring, see where we come to, and as we all come to an agreement on the ranking, and we could then make a decision perhaps on the 14th in that case. But if it was,
When is the meeting on the 14th?
I still have that as 2 to 3:30 on the 14th, and then I guess that would be kind of where it might be helpful to be flexible if you all could stay longer on that day, depending, or if, like Michael said, if we, by the time we'll have some time to know, if we just know it's going to be a much longer meeting, maybe we could move it up. That works for everyone's schedule, or break it into 2. So that's, to me, very flexible at this point.
I think on the 14th, the idea of it being Wednesday at 2, and then to whenever, with a somewhat of a reasonable limit. Anything beyond 3 or 4 hours make it not as useful, but
So a good thing to keep in mind, I don't think we can go beyond 4 because we have an admin meeting for the commission that night.
Okay.
And so Chris recommended cutting it off at 4, so we would have to move it up if we wanted more time, which I know that will be hard to predict, but.
well, we'll know how many applications we have.
Mhm.
I would agree. We could just play it by ear and wait to see how many applications come in before we determine whether or not it's 1 or 2 meetings.
That sounds good. I like that.
Okay. Any final comments or questions on the timeline? Anyone have any scheduling, things that we should, if you have any schedule conflicts or requests in terms of, please avoid, yes, we can meet during the afternoon, but people may have family obligations and things that, at the end of the day. So that's to be expected and acceptable. So let us know. So we'll schedule, ideally we'll want to have a full participation. We'll want to check with the folks who weren't with us today to make sure. So we'll get that out to the group. Okay, anything else on the timeline? No. All right, next on the agenda is item C, is changing the standing meeting to the second Wednesday of each month, which it seems like that's what we, of late, well, today is the second Wednesday of the month, isn't? So how does that generally work? Let me see what that does to my schedule.
As a rule, I like the second Wednesday of the month, but do we need to meet earlier next month or we don't need to have that early meeting next month, right? You're gonna,
No,
so the 14th would be,
14th looks good right now.
I think I'm not sure if you all have the same schedule, but I think we're maybe off on the 10th. That'd be
Yeah.
one thing to think about in October.
Yeah.
And if that works for everyone, I guess I don't have a conflict there.
Well, with Wednesday, we'd be meeting Wednesdays, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So it looks pretty good on mine.
Okay,
Works for me.
Everyone else comfortable with that? So a little earlier November works for us. And we won't necessarily, we're going through a big part of the work we need to accomplish. We'll want to, review and when we go use these tools and work through the process. So perhaps some of the time that we may or may not need, whether we'll be meeting every month will really determine by the workload.
mhm,
But yeah, the second Wednesday seems to probably work better.
okay,
Yeah, I tend to take off beginnings of month rather than the end of the month, so good. So December might be, but we'll be having we'll have a separate meeting schedule in December since we'll be reviewing is it the second? It's the second Wednesday anyway, so yeah, it works out well. Okay. Everyone in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Any concerns? Conflicts? All right. We'll send out a save the date for just so that people have that shifted on their Outlook.
Yep, I'll go ahead and I'll work with April and we can get that that updated, and we'll send you a new calendar invite with the second Wednesday of the month.
In April, if you can remove the original, I sometimes end up with double entries. I never know where I am some days until I look at my Outlook. So sometimes I'm running around to meetings.
Once I have the schedule from Tara, I will just change the dates on those calendar invitations.
Perfect. The nice, despite my current COVID status, I hope someday we'll be meeting in person. That'd be fun. Alrighty. It's now time on our agenda for public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, please identify yourself and by name. And provide your public comment. Is anyone wishing to make public comment? All right, last call for public comment. All righty, not hearing any, we'll close public comment. Okay. Next on the agenda is advisory board members' communications, proposals for next agenda, or any other anything. Any thoughts there? I think we've had a good discussion of our schedule. All righty. We'll close that and meetings of interest announcements. So according to what we just decided, we would meet on the 14th. Kara will get back to us as if we'll need some involvement from the board in terms of the initial presentation. And again, I think it's the city staff role, but we would support them in saying our involvement in an extensive process, providing them detailed and specific guidance and feedback on the development of these documents. But they would present the initial drafts to the city commissioners. And then we're on the second Wednesday of the month schedule going off from there. Okay. Any announcements, other announcements? Kara or anyone else? Okay.
No.
On December, when we review the applications, is there any chance we could do that in person, or is that going to be over this as well?
We could do it in person, possibly. I think any meeting like this moving forward, the city is going to have a hybrid model. And I guess I would maybe just say that we're kind of currently in a hybrid model right now with,
Okay.
you know,
I thought I'd ask.
yeah.
Kara, could you look?
I would
Okay.
also note that we are waiting direction from the city clerk's office, from the city, as to when to resume in-person meetings. Currently, we have not received direction to do so at this time.
Yeah, we're at
Yeah,
the
thanks,
housing
April.
authority. We continue to, we are guided by the community threshold numbers, which continue to be very high, seem to be extremely high. Or maybe I have a bigger interest in it this week, but yeah, so if we were to meet in person, if we would have a big enough meeting room to kind of spread us out a little bit, I think would be helpful. And hopefully it probably won't be this fall, winter, but that will be past these COVID concerns. But anyway, so we'll play it by ear on that one.
Sounds good to
And
me.
that we can, maybe at one of our November meeting, we can talk about, or, or an October meeting, kind of the type of presentation, how we would like the information, make sure that everyone has it, and, when we'll have it in advance, but in terms of, as we're reviewing it together, the documents will be shared in a, way that everyone can see that really well. Make sure that everyone has their technology is going to work for them, things like that. So whatever we do, we want it to be able to work well for a really thorough conversation. I do think reviewing it would be nice to be in person, be able to see everybody, response, get a good full conversation. But I think a lot of the review people will be board members, advisory board members will be, will take a fair amount of homework just to, do your homework and have your notes and have your scoring. And as we put together a collective scoring, that will be useful. Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the cause? I'd welcome a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Byron, so moved.
All right. And seconded.
I'll second.
All righty. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say A.
A.
All right.
Aye.
A. All right. Hey, look, the Fonz does a lot of fishing in Montana, so look for him. Anyway, take care, everybody. And Carol will have some more information, but good work.
Get
Move
well,
things along.
Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna
Thanks,
go,
everyone.
I'm going back to bed. All
Yeah.
right.
Go
Thank you.
take a nap. Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.